Alright, putting the new laminated floor down, it has to have 1/8 of an inch from every wall that it comes next to. The pit, the entranceway coming into the living room, is in a little well. When it comes up, there's molding around it. The floor can't butt up against that molding, so it has to have an 1/8 inch gap. And that means we have to have some kind of molding to go over the 1/8 inch gap. The first image you see is, of course, the floor, pieces of floor going up underneath a piece of molding that you can't buy. So we came up with molding, and as you can see from the diagram, it allows for that 3/8 inch gap for the floorboard to the edge of the wall, but it's hidden by the overhang of that molding. It's cut in an L shape. And this is a test piece we made out of an old piece of 2x4, and we cut it on the saw, and we wanted to see if we could make our own. And of course, in the last picture, it shows that going all the way butted up, but it doesn't. It has a 3/8 inch gap. This is a stagnant shot of the table saw. Here I am stepping in there. We're going to measure to make the first cut. First cut, we're going to take the 2x4, lay it down. We're going to rip the wide part of the 2x4 so it's exactly 2 inches wide to conform with our plan or our drawing. So here we are setting up the saw, setting up the fence, and now we're going to go cut this 2x4 so that it's 2 inches wide. And here we go. We get all set to go here. Sooner or later I'll quit farting around here and cut this. I don't know, I was looking, gotta have the push stick. I wanted to make sure that was handy so I can keep my fingers and toes in place. Here we go, vacuum on, saw running, here we go. We're starting to cut. This little saw is pretty cool. It cuts pretty good. I got it at a good price. But for some reason, this 2x4, I have no idea what it's made out of, but it sure as hell did not want to rip. It was the toughest piece of wood I think I've ever seen. That's a 40 tooth blade that's on there. It's fairly new, and it usually goes through stuff so quick it's not funny. But here we are, pushing the 2x4 through, and because it is so hard, it kind of scared me because it's real easy to push up and push over onto that saw blade, and of course that won't feel good. So there's a little push stick. I'm going to use it, and there it goes. We're running it down, and it's getting ripped. So that piece will be exactly 2 inches wide. There we go. There she goes. Flo gets it. Now we're going to rip it again. This time we're going to rip the 2 inches, the 2 inch wide piece, so that it's 3/4 of an inch thick. So here we are. We're going to change the saw blade out because I thought maybe that 40 tooth blade just wasn't getting it really good on the 2x4. So we're going to change the saw blade, and we're going to put the original brand new saw blade that came with the saw. We're going to put that on there. That saw blade that I'm taking off is a 40 tooth I bought at Harbor Freight, and that little booger cuts like nobody's business. Nice and clean it cuts. But for some reason that 2x4 was so hard to cut that I thought maybe that 40 tooth blade just wasn't enough. So we're going to put this, I think this is 20 teeth on this saw blade. And this was the saw blade that came with the table. There we go. Get it in the right direction there, buddy. And we get it in, get it on, get the washer on, and get the nut on, and we'll tighten it all up. So it took a while to figure out which way these wrenches had to go in order to tighten and loosen stuff, because everything is upside down and arse backwards. So that's where we're at. All right. So now this was a mistake putting. They call this thing a reaver or whatever. It splits the wood when you cut it, and that was a mistake putting this thing back on. So now we take our 2 by 1 3/4 inch, and we're going to make it now 3/4 of an inch. We're going to make it 2 by 3/4. So it only needs to be 3/4 of an inch thick. We're making sure we got enough saw blade up. And now we'll bring the fence over and measure it to get the 3/4. Sure, nice and quiet in here, but it's a lot noisier than you think. We had to dub over this because the radio was on the entire time we were out in the garage, and so all of the talking that we were doing is lost because the radio was playing pop music, of course, and they kind of frown upon that when you don't have rights to the music in order to use it. There we go. One last check. Everything good? Yep, okay. It's now 3/4 of an inch. So now we're going to take that 2 by 4, going to go back in there, and we're going to make it 2 inches by 3/4 inches. So here we go. There goes the saw. And, whoop, I had to go plug the saw back in. Smart move. We unplugged the saw in order to change the blade so that no accidents could happen. So now we have to plug it back in. Now we can turn it back on. Zippy! Look at that thing run. Now, here we go. And there goes the cut into the fence. Boy, that was some tough wood. I don't know what is the deal with that wood, but it was really scary because you had to really push. You'll see the table will start to slide after a while. That's how much pressure it takes in order to get it through there. And whoop. Alright. I wanted to hook onto the end of that. Well, it's too soon, I guess. My poor fingers, man. Oops, see how much pressure it takes to get it to cut. And I just didn't understand that. There's something about this wood I don't know. I am not a carpenter. All I know how to do is make sawdust, and that's what I'm doing, making sawdust. Yep. Can't have nobody putting their fingers into the saw blade. Makes a mess. All that blood and stuff. You can see it keeps riding up over the blade, and the blade is sticking all the way through, just barely. That's a 8 1/4 inch blade, and all the way up, that's all you're going to get, and I guess that's about just a little bit more than 4 inches. So, and I thought that blade would be a little bit more aggressive. It is a carbide tip, so I thought it would cut better, but then the other one was carbide tip too. Alright, there we go. We ripped it down. Now it's 2 inches by 3/4 thick. Now we only have to make 2 more cuts. And the one cut is, we have to make a 2-inch cut, because at the overhang piece, if you go back and look at the drawing, the overhead piece is 2 inches, and it's 3/4 inches wide at the back. So it's 3/4 thick, 3/4 wide, then it's cut the 2-inch gap, and it actually works out to be, if I'm not mistaken, inch and a half, or 1 5/8 is the slot. You have to have 3/8 gap, and we had about 1 1/4 overhang of the boards. Alright, so now we're checking the drawing to make sure that we're cutting right, so, because this has all got to be consistently, this doesn't get cut all the way through. And what I'm doing is I'm measuring the board, put marks on it so I can set the saw blade. And this is where that piece at the back of the saw blade is going to have to come out. Because we started to cut it and it got hung. because it doesn't get cut all the way through. The blade is only raised up 1.25 inches, and it goes through, it gets cut, then we have to turn it flat and measure 3/4 over again and then cut it, and so we can take the notch out where the L hole, the L will make the L shape. Yeah, the molding around the doorway entrance is 3/4 of an inch high. So by cutting this 3/4 of an inch thick, when it goes up in there, it'll be flush, and then the floorboards, as you can see, go up underneath it. So now we're rolling the blade down in order to get the height of the blade, because this cut is going to go in, then we're going to flip it, make another cut, and that will make the L cut. So here we go, getting it adjusted. I have a mark on the wood, and I'm adjusting the saw blade to that mark. I'm probably talking a whole lot more than I need to, but as I'm doing this, I'm watching the video and I'm just letting you know what's going on. And so here we go. Yep, add a little coffee. Without coffee, you can't do anything. You got to have that power juice, the nectar of the gods. And here we go. I gotta hurry. I only have 97 minutes left on the battery of the recording device that's recording this voiceover. I'm drinking coffee now. All right. I don't know why I'm looking over there. I don't remember. Oh, that was the 3/8. The gap was 3/8. So, and if I'm not mistaken, this is to get the height. So I used a piece that was already cut to 3/8, laid it up alongside the saw blade, moved the fence over. Now we're going to check it anyway. And the fence it can move at both ends until you lock it down, and of course, to make it exactly parallel to the saw blade, you have to measure both ends. And that black reeving thing got in the way every time. So, alright, we got it. Throw that down there. We're all set. Here we go. We're going to cut. Yeah. So, as you can see, that piece disappeared. That's because when we hit it, it wouldn't allow the board to go through. So here we are, cutting. It's 2 inches high by 3/8 of an inch. Let me look at the drawing and I can say that correctly. Yeah, the cut is 3/8 by inch, by inch and a quarter. That's what it is. So this is the 1.25 inches, but it has to only go in 3/8. So that's what this is doing. One more cut, and we're gonna get the old push stick. Yeah, little Flo, she's trying to hold on to that board and keep it from lifting off the table. I had to pass this board through a couple of times because every time it got lifted by the saw, it and went back down again. It was giving us a problem. And you can see right there where it lifted up. So what I did was I took it and I said, well, screw this, man. It was already cut, so it should just go right on through. And come right on out the back now. There we go. Boy, them table saw scares the hell out of me. Alright, so we got that cut. Now we just need to make the 3/8 cut, which is 1.25 inches over. And See what happens now. And only when you're trying to dub in a video, man, everybody has to come in the room, so make the door squeak. Now we're bringing the saw blade down again, because now it has to only be 3/8 of an inch high. And then we're going to rip this again, so we have to get that 1.25 inches, and then by 3/8, and then it will take that piece right on out of there real pretty. I don't know, that was the toughest piece of pine I ever seen. I'm trying to make sure I ain't forgot nothing, because I got all confused with these this molding cut. Alright, so here we are, we're running it through. Table saw scares the hell out of me. And I ain't afraid of nothing. And making our own molding is pretty cool. But we'll use a much softer wood when we go to make the molding. This is just, like I said, a test piece. There you go. Now we have a nice L-shape. We have a nice L-shaped piece, which will go in. I wished I would have noticed how crappy the ends were before I went into the house and set it down on the floor and took pictures of it. I could have trimmed off the end and made the ends look much nicer. So we're going to go, here we go, we're going back in there again, clean up the cut, because of this thing wanting to fly up. I cleaned up the cut quite a bit. But the next time we do this, when we do it for real, we'll probably not stop short. We'll probably add a 32nd of an inch to the cut. That way there we'll have no feathers in the corners. It'll be nice and square. We had little feathers from the cut in those corners, and of course that we can't have that. So there we are, nice and clean. See, that's what we're looking at. It's the feathers in the corners. So it looks pretty good. Now we take my knife and peel the fucking tag off and peel the little feathers out of the cut. There we go. All right. Alright, show us that beautiful piece of woodwork you just made. Nobody can cut wood like that and make neat stuff. It's what art of the table saw, I guess. And a little coffee. And here we are. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? That is a homemade stick. And it did work pretty good. I mean, you know, I brought the camera in so you could see. We made us a L-shaped stick. And you gotta love it when a plan comes together. So, L-shaped stick. We have to see if we can find a nicer piece of wood than that, though. Experimenting with 2x4 sucks. And that's what it looked like. And if I'd have realized how bad that looked, I would have recut that. I finally did. I cut the ends, made them neat, but this looks kind of crappy. And of course the floorboard will be pulled back about 3/8 of an inch for that expansion clearance.